America is feeling the pinch everywhere from grocery aisles to gas stations. Prices are climbing faster than anyone expected, but what's really behind these sudden price surges? Is it the pandemic supply chain issues, government stimulus, or something more hidden, like tariff shocks that quietly ripple through the economy? Every time a tariff is imposed on imported goods, it's not just a number on a trade report, it's a direct hit to your wallet. From electronics to clothing, even everyday essentials, tariffs raise costs for companies, and those costs get passed straight to consumers. Combine that with inflationary pressures already simmering in the economy, and you have a perfect storm that's pushing prices higher every month. In this video, we'll dive deep into the hidden mechanisms driving inflation in America. We'll uncover how tariffs create shockwaves across industries, explore why some price rises are temporary while others may linger, and reveal what this means for your money, your lifestyle, and the future of the U.S. economy. By the end, you'll understand the forces behind every price tag and what might happen next. Understanding inflation in today's America. Inflation is often described as the silent thief of purchasing power. In simple terms, it means that the money you earn today buys less than it did yesterday. For Americans right now, inflation isn't a distant economic term, it's a daily reality. Prices for groceries, gas, rent, and even services are climbing steadily, affecting household budgets across the nation. Historically, inflation has varied widely, from the double-digit spikes of the 1970s to the near-zero rates during the Great Recession. Today, the inflation rate has surged higher than many experts predicted, prompting concern from policymakers and citizens alike. The Consumer Price Index, or CPI, is one key measure of inflation, tracking how prices for a basket of goods and services change over time. Recent data shows sectors like food, energy, and housing seeing the sharpest increases. For example, gasoline prices have fluctuated due to global oil market pressures, while groceries are costlier because of supply chain delays and higher commodity prices. Understanding inflation is crucial because it directly influences everything from household budgets to interest rates. By analyzing current trends, we can begin to see the factors behind these price rises and why they are happening faster than expected. The tariff factor. Tariffs are essentially taxes placed on imported goods. While governments often use them to protect domestic industries or retaliate against trade partners, they can have far-reaching consequences for consumers. When the U.S. imposes a tariff on imports, whether steel, aluminum, or electronics, companies importing these goods face higher costs. These increased expenses rarely stop at the corporate level. They are passed on to consumers in the form of higher prices. For instance, tariffs on Chinese electronics forced U.S. companies to either absorb costs or raise retail prices. Tariffs don't just affect final products, they ripple through supply chains. Components for cars, appliances, or smartphones may suddenly become more expensive, causing manufacturers to adjust prices across their products. Moreover, tariffs can spark trade disputes. Countries affected by U.S. tariffs may retaliate with their own tariffs, creating a chain reaction that raises costs for multiple industries. While tariffs are intended to encourage domestic production and protect jobs, they can also lead to unexpected inflationary pressures. For consumers, this means that tariffs, though often hidden in economic headlines, play a tangible role in every price hike they encounter. Supply chain disruptions and global shockwaves. Even before tariffs, global supply chains have been under immense pressure. The COVID-19 pandemic exposed vulnerabilities in the way goods move across countries. Ports clogged with containers, labor shortages in factories, and shipping delays created bottlenecks that reverberated through the global economy. Now, tariffs amplify these disruptions, making it more expensive and complicated to move goods. For example, a car manufacturer importing steel faces delays and added costs, which are eventually reflected in higher vehicle prices. The semiconductor shortage is another critical case. Chips are essential for electronics, cars, and household appliances, yet global production struggles to meet demand. Combine this with tariffs on key materials, and price shocks are inevitable. Supply chain issues don't just increase costs, they also create scarcity, which can further push prices upward. Consumers may notice delays in product availability or sudden price spikes for everyday items. Essentially, global disruptions and tariff-induced costs interact, creating a ripple effect. One delay or cost increase in Asia or Europe can result in higher prices on American shelves. Understanding these interconnected factors explains why inflation has been so persistent and why some price increases feel unavoidable. Consumer behavior and demand pressures. Inflation is not just about supply, it's also about demand. Following the pandemic, Americans unleashed pent-up spending, driving up demand for goods ranging from electronics to groceries to cars. When demand outpaces supply, prices naturally rise. This is known as demand pull inflation. At the same time, tariffs make imported goods more expensive, compounding price pressures. Consumers, often unaware of the economic mechanics, still feel the effect. Higher grocery bills, pricier electronics, and more expensive cars. Behavioral factors amplify the impact. Panic buying or stockpiling during shortages temporarily inflates demand further, creating short-term price surges. Additionally, sectors like real estate and automobiles are particularly sensitive to demand pressures. When multiple consumers chase limited goods, sellers have leverage to raise prices. Retailers, manufacturers, and service providers respond not only to rising costs but also to shifting consumer behavior. The combination of strong demand and added costs from tariffs and supply chain delays creates a perfect storm. For everyday Americans, this means the price of living is climbing faster than wages in many cases, highlighting the need to understand not just economic policies, but how individual behavior shapes market trends. Government policies and stimulus effects. Government policies play a critical role in shaping inflation. During the pandemic, the U.S. government issued massive stimulus packages to support households and businesses. While these measures were necessary to prevent economic collapse, they also injected a huge amount of money into the economy. More money circulating in the system, combined with supply constraints and tariffs, can intensify inflationary pressures. When Americans have more disposable income due to stimulus checks, they spend, increasing demand for goods and services. Simultaneously, businesses face higher costs due to tariffs and supply chain disruptions, which they pass on to consumers. The Federal Reserve monitors these trends closely, adjusting interest rates to keep inflation under control, but the balance is delicate. Policies aimed at stimulating growth can inadvertently fuel price rises if supply cannot meet demand. Additionally, fiscal and monetary policies interact with trade policies, trade restrictions, and import taxes to create a multi-layered effect on prices. Understanding how government action impacts inflation helps explain why everyday Americans feel the pinch, even when headlines focus on global events or corporate strategies. Industry case studies. Let's break down inflation with concrete examples. In the electronics sector, tariffs on components like semiconductors and imports from Asia have raised costs for manufacturers, resulting in higher prices for laptops, phones, and appliances. In the automotive industry, steel and aluminum tariffs, combined with global chip shortages, have caused new and used car prices to surge. Even used vehicles, which rely on parts and production levels tied to tariffs and supply chain efficiency, see price spikes. Food and agriculture aren't immune either. Tariffs on fertilizers, trade restrictions, and rising shipping costs increase the price of grains, vegetables, and meat. Even basic items like eggs or dairy can become more expensive when input costs rise. These case studies illustrate a broader truth. Tariffs and supply chain issues impact multiple layers of production, making inflation not just a headline statistic but a lived reality for every consumer. By examining these industries, we can see exactly how policy decisions, global events, and supply constraints translate into higher bills for households. Future outlook and potential solutions. What does the future hold for inflation in America? Tariffs may fluctuate depending on trade negotiations and geopolitical developments. Some experts predict temporary easing, while others warn of persistent price pressures. Supply chains are slowly recovering, but vulnerabilities remain, especially in critical sectors like semiconductors, energy, and agriculture. On the policy side, government interventions and Federal Reserve actions will play a decisive role in stabilizing prices. Businesses can also adjust by diversifying supply sources, adopting cost-saving technologies, or passing minimal costs to consumers. For everyday Americans, understanding these dynamics is key to managing personal finances. Smart budgeting, prioritizing essential spending, and staying informed about trade and economic policies can reduce the impact of price rises. Ultimately, while inflationary pressures won't vanish overnight, awareness and proactive strategies can help individuals and businesses navigate the challenges ahead. Being informed about tariffs, supply chain issues, and demand pressures allows consumers to anticipate changes and make better financial decisions in an ever-shifting economy. In summary, today's rising prices in America are not caused by a single factor, they are the result of multiple forces colliding. Tariffs on imported goods increase costs for businesses, supply chain disruptions create scarcity, post-pandemic demand surges push prices higher, and government policies, while necessary, can add fuel to the inflation fire. Understanding these interconnected factors helps us see why grocery bills, gas prices, and everyday essentials are climbing faster than expected. While these trends may feel overwhelming, knowledge is power. By staying informed about trade policies, inflation trends, and market shifts, consumers can make smarter financial decisions and plan for the future. If you found this video insightful, hit the like button, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. What price changes are affecting you the most? Stay tuned for our next video, where we'll explore practical strategies to protect your money from rising costs.